One of the most effective and underrated tools or strategies or weapons in your armoury, if you are involved in a legal dispute, if you're involved in an employment dispute, if you're involved in negotiating property, sale or purchase, or if you're actually baking bread, one of the most powerful tools you can have is time. And time doesn't cost anything to deploy as a weapon. Let me explain. Let's say you are an employer, and let's say your employee has a number of disputes with you, which can happen, a number of grievances. And oftentimes employees will go out sick. Sometimes it's genuine stress, and sometimes it's a sort of a tactical move. A lot of employees seem to think that going out sick is a good tactical move. And perhaps it is from time to time. But there is certain circumstances where an employee will go out sick. There's no sick pay scheme in place. And every day, every week then that they're out sick is costing them money, because their normal wages or salary might be 500 a week or 750 a week or whatever it is, when in fact then they're getting illness benefit of perhaps €200 a week. So in that situation, after a month or 2 or 3 months of an unresolved dispute, and the employee basically burning cash because he or she is only getting illness benefit from the Department of Social Protection when they're not getting their normal wages, that's a situation where the employer can actually use time as a weapon, as a strategy to really put the squeeze on. Now, the corollary is true as well. For example, if an employee is on a sick pay scheme and there's a generous sick pay scheme in place, it's going to be expensive for the employer to tolerate that situation, to continue. So in that situation, the whip hand in terms of the use of the tool of time may be in the employee's hand. But the point is that for one of the parties in any dispute, whether it's litigation or whether it's employment or anything else, one of the parties will be able to use time fairly effectively, in my experience. So you need to consider that whether you're an employer or an employee. The exact same situation will apply in relation to buying or selling a property. Let's say you're buying a property, for example. Let's say you're a first-time buyer, and let's say the vendor from whom you're buying the property is actually buying a replacement property. They may well be committed to a certain timeline, a certain time scale, because they may be committed to another house that they're really keen on. They may even have signed contracts, and therefore they are under a certain time constraint. And again, in terms of negotiating or perhaps getting a structural survey done and there's issues with it, you may be able to use that along with time and the time pressure to your advantage, because you may be able to negotiate a reduced price or get something thrown in to alleviate the burden of having to carry out some work that perhaps wasn't anticipated but has been thrown up in the structural survey. And finally then, time in relation to baking bread, especially if you're baking sourdough bread, is an incredibly useful tool, because the longer you leave your bread to ferment and to proof and so on, especially if you're putting it in the fridge, the more complex tastes you're going to get, the more mature tastes you're going to get. And again, time, any decent baker will tell you that time is a very, very effective and vital component in baking decent bread. So there you go, 3 circumstances where I think that time is a very useful weapon, and you need to be careful and you need to be mindful that you're looking at your situation, and whether you're in a dispute as an employee, or you're in litigation, or you are buying or selling a property, or you're just baking bread, you need to see if you're using time well and effectively. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I would appreciate if you gave it the thumbs up down below. Thanks a lot.